I'm Dr. Jon Dabach, and in today's episode, we're discussing whether ChatGPT or AI in general will eventually replace counselors and psychologists and even coaches. Before we get into the nitty gritty of why this might or might not happen, I'm going to give you 3 reasons on the yes and 3 reasons on the maybe not so much. I want to take a moment and encourage you to like and subscribe this video. It really does help me in the channel and encourage me to make free content for you. I love giving back to the community. And leave in the comments what else you might want me to cover about whatever it is that you want to understand about the human mind and the human emotion in relationships. So let's dive in. This is a big talking point with a lot of therapists in the communities that I hang out in. A lot of coaches are also concerned about this. And I think there's reasons on both sides. Personally, I'll give you my kind of short summary right up front. I don't like wasting people's time. I think that it's going to replace a segment of talk therapy. I don't think it will ever replace it completely. Because there are some intricacies that we'll talk about. But I do think that for people who don't typically go to therapy in general, it'll be a very easy, low barrier of entry for a lot of people. And I do think that it can help in supplementing care. So much like a self-help book is going to help a lot of people, I think AI will start replacing that in a more customized way. Eventually, depending on how good the tech gets, it can be incredibly useful. I mean, if it gets to the point where it's like that Spike Jonze movie, Her, where your therapist has a voice and a personality that's unique, that's developed with you, then yeah, it's very likely it can completely get erased. But we're not quite there yet. And the truth is, if that happens and it's actually cost effective, I have real concerns about how much energy it takes to run ChatGPT. I mean, it's incredible. It's like an incredibly consumer, it consumes a ton of fossil fuels and stuff. And so it's not so simple to just say AI will take over everything until we have an energy source. So that's like a real concern. But when it gets to that point, if it replaces people like me and counselors and whatnot, and everybody gets to have one, I think that's great. I'll find another job. I'll go be a plumber or something. Seriously, I don't care. I want people to get the help that they need. I just don't think it's there yet. So, and I have no idea what the timeline is on how quickly it can get there. But I do think it needs to be humanized to the point where people forget that they're talking to an AI. That's really when it's going to get serious. So let's talk about the pros and cons, right? So 3 reasons that I have kind of nailed down as to why AI might replace psychologists and counselors and coaches and all that stuff. So first of all, it's incredibly efficient and accessible. It's available 24/7, which is something that you can't say about any doctor really. So if you have a panic attack at 2 a.m. and you can open your phone and say, I had a panic attack, and you hear Scarlett Johansson's voice saying, oh my God, what's wrong? That's irreplaceable. That would be incredible. And scalability. There are still an unmeasurable amount of people who really need talk therapy that don't have access to it. They're in rural areas. There aren't enough therapists for the demand. I also think it's going to reduce the stigma. A lot of people are going to try it and say, okay, well, let's see if this helps. So that's kind of all in the efficiency and accessibility portion. A second thing is consistency. So we take notes, right? When I see a client, I take notes. Sometimes it's only 3 lines. Sometimes with certain people's permission or at their request, I'll record a session. Sometimes I'll have AI even take notes on the session. Zoom has some cool features. It's not really great yet, especially not if there's an unnamed participant. So like when I do couples therapy, it's me and 2 people, but Zoom only knows there's one other name. It doesn't know there's 2 people on that camera. So it messes that up pretty royally right now. So, I take notes, but AI has the ability, I don't know if it has the ability now, but it definitely hypothetically has the ability to remember every single word you've ever said and date stamp and time stamp it. And that's pretty powerful. To have that kind of recall, an instant recall, is really quite amazing. And if a therapist had that, they would have a leg up on other therapists. Now, the truth is, I remember most things. And when I don't remember things, sometimes having the person repeat a certain aspect of their history is actually helpful, not just for me, but for them. So it's not a huge advantage, but it is an advantage. I also think that AI, one of the advantages of AI, and this doesn't have an advantage over a human counselor, but one of the advantages it has is it's able to be personalized. I use ChatGPT sometimes. I'm experimenting with it. It's kind of fun. And I've noticed I can train it to understand me. And so your AI isn't going to be a good therapist for your brother because you've trained it over time. And that's pretty interesting, right? Because that what it really is doing is it's becoming more competitive against a human. It's not generic advice, it's tailored towards you. So that's kind of an argument for how it can replace you. So consistency and data utilization in personalization, that's going to be incredibly useful for AI. It also is going to have objective analysis. So I'm putting that in the same umbrella. Um, every therapist is going to practice differently. They're going to bring their own bias to the table. AI won't, or at least conceivably it won't. Maybe it will. I don't know. It depends who programs it, right? But conceivably, it can look at your symptoms, it can understand things, and then give you an objective analysis. So things like diagnostics, right? If you really need medication, and you can get an AI to sign off that you are, requiring it, and that might make it more efficient for a psychiatrist at a certain point to prescribe you meds. That's pretty interesting, right? Because it's objective in a way that humans can't be. Now, it's also an AI, so it's going to be, if there's advantage like medication, people are going to try and hack and abuse it. So that's why you're not going to see that happen so quickly. But when it comes to not putting the therapist's own thing, so like let's say the therapist is an atheist and you're looking for someone with a religious perspective, your AI can do that, right? It can be objective and kind of feed you what you need. And therapists are not completely capable of that. We try, right? So counselors try, but we're not always great at it. People slip up. And then the third argument for is cost effectiveness. Without a doubt, it's going to be cheaper. Without a doubt, even if you have an insurance plan with like a zero copay, as soon as it's proven to be right, or proven to be effective, insurance is going to adopt one of those companies and make it free for everybody because they don't make money on therapy. They make money on emergency rooms, on surgery, on medications. They do not make money on therapy. It's just not, the margins are not high enough for a hospital type setting or insurance provider to make money on it at all. So if they can solve the problem of not having to send people to human therapists by buying something for several $1,000,000, they'll do it in a second. So why won't it replace therapists? We'll go over three really quickly. So there's ethical and privacy concerns. As soon as you are tapping into an AI, technically speaking, there's going to always be a fear that that information now becomes public. And there are people who I have had who won't even discuss things over the phone, and they only want to meet in person. So that's never going to be rectified. And that's a real concern. I think under that umbrella is also ethical dilemmas. It doesn't have moral reasoning. So there's going to be some hard stop limitations. So there's always going to need to be like a human therapist on standby, probably. Or you're going to have to sign one hell of a waiver, I got to tell you. Number two is the complexity of human emotions. It's not simple. I think every good counselor, every good coach, every good therapist, one of their best qualities isn't their knowledge, but their emotional attunement, their empathy. If you don't excel in human empathy, you're not going to make a good counselor. It doesn't work that way, and it's going to be hard to train that. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I've been at this 12 years and I'm still learning. And maybe I'm just slow. Maybe it's something you can train a computer to do really quickly, but it's hard, right? I think an AI will be able to give you the textbook answers much faster than me, but I don't think it's going to be able to see in your face you're sad and kind of know that you need a little bit of a slower tone of voice. It's going to be a while till it develops that amount of sophistication because it's different person to person. Sometimes people are mad when they're really sad. Sometimes people are mad when they're really mad. It's a genuine emotion. So being able to distinguish that and we don't get it right all the time, but we get it right more than a computer would by a long stretch currently. That goes to subjectivities. Intuition is a big kind of factor in that ballpark. The third one is human connection and empathy. Kind of connected to the complexity of human emotion, but I don't know how easy it's going to be to build trust and rapport with an AI. Again, if it's like Spike Jonze's movie Her, it took a while, even in that movie, even with a voice as sultry and warm and compassionate as Scarlett Johansson, even in that narrative, Joaquin Phoenix's character took weeks for him to like warm up and really lower his guard. And so there's that as well. I think a fourth tangible thing is also stigma. So people have a stigma for therapy, but they're going to have a bigger stigma for therapy with AI. It's just natural. My computer told me to, that exercising is good for me. It's gonna take a while before that's adapted, adopted. Again, my name is Dr. Jon Dabach. I hope this was helpful. I'm really excited to see this. I'm not anti-AI, by the way. I want to make it clear that if this goes well and people can be helped, I'm all for it. I just want to make sure that we mitigate the dangers of not helping people the right way. That's my biggest concern. On the screen, you'll see other videos here recommended for you on how to improve your life and relationship. I really recommend you look at one of those. And don't forget to leave in the comments below what you think about AI and therapy. I'd love to hear your thoughts.